What is good and great morning, everybody, and Fundamism fam. Welcome to another edition of the Fundamism podcast. I am your host, Paul J. Long, coming to you again from my office. Another day in quarantine life, but things are starting to ease up, and hopefully everybody's being safe, smiling often, and having some fun. Excited for today's guest today, but before we introduce him, I'd like to shout out an organization that's been with us from the jump. You guys know the deal. You hear me talk about them often. Hopefully, if you're following our daily videos, you see all their amazing shirts. Charlie Hustle has got everything you need to showcase your love for your community or a local university, whatever you're into. Go to charliehustle.com to learn more, including finding a really fashionable mask now that we are capable of going back out into society. So, as we welcome today's guest, this gentleman literally connected with me via LinkedIn through a mutual friend. And what I admired about the connection is his introduction said, I've come to a place in my life where I want to surround myself with the right people, people that will lift me up, people that will make me smile, people that will challenge me when I need to. And through the connections that you have and the people that we follow together, you seem to be one of those fantastic people. And so this is the introduction that I get where this guy is just building me up. I want to say a warm welcome to our guest, Paul Montello. What's good, Paul?
Man, what's not good? It's great to be here. I appreciate you. I'll tell you, it's so funny, the introduction, it makes me think back to like grade school when kids just used to be real and they would come up to me like, hey, you want to be friends? You're like, yeah, let's be friends. Like, I'm like, when did that become socially unacceptable, right? Like, hey, you're cool. Let's be friends, man. And you're like, oh, whatever, that's cool. Want to do a Zoom call next Friday, like a play date? And you're like, yeah, let's do it, man.
And that's exactly how it went down. To your point, what's interesting about that is we get lots of folks, you, myself, other individuals on LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram or wherever you are in society. I know I personally get a lot of requests, and it typically starts with an ask. Hey, if you want to learn more about what I do, or if you need help in social media or whatever it may be. And so that's why it was so refreshing. And I told you this, to have somebody that say, I don't have an angle. Like, I would just like to have a little more of you in my life, which I would say that my wife would argue the opposite at this point of spending so much time together in quarantine. But nevertheless, Paul, we start every single episode with the same question to every guest. What do you do for fun, my friend?
Oh man. Well, first off, I hang around people that are fun, and people are fun. I would say some of my favorite things, though, and I don't know if it would fall into the category of fun, but I'm a big fan of sunlight. I'm a big fan of running outside. I'm a big fan of water. So like the beach is my place, and that's the great thing about Kansas City is like every beach in the country is equally close, right? I mean, if you really want to be the optimist, that's the way you see it. It's amazing. What a gift. So, but I also really like in the evening right now, we got this routine with the kids in quarantine life that is so fun. We do Just Dance. We're on Just Dance 4 right now on the Wii.
Yes.
And my son has mastered Skrillex, Love, Take You to the Mountaintop. My daughter is a Maroon 5, beast. She tears it up. And I'm really getting into Stevie Wonder right now, to be honest.
Yes. Signed, sealed, delivered, I'm yours. Are you superstitious as well?
Superstitious is my jam. That's it. Yes.
No, we haven't done Stevie yet on the morning jams. And so, I have a wealth of songs that I wake up to and I'll say, is this the day? And sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't. But Stevie is definitely in the mix.
Yes.
Well, what I appreciate about what you just said is I don't know if this would be defined as fun. And you're such a nice guy. We were texting last night and you were saying, I hope I fulfill your expectations, or I want to meet your purpose. And the purpose, I told you, was just to be genuinely interested and curious about the individuals on here. Mm-hmm. And so the same thing goes for what you do for fun. Like, I have no expectation or definition of fun for me personally. It's all about you. It's whatever makes you smile. And I hope that folks, as they continue through their Fundamism journey, or hear a podcast or listen to me speak, understand that I'm not trying to define anybody's fun for them. I'm trying to get them to see more of the stuff that lifts them up as opposed to the stuff that doesn't. And so for you, sunlight, just dance, going outside, beaches, those are all fun to me, brother. So thanks for sharing.
You know, what else is fun? Like, what does Paul Long do for fun? I mean, I've seen the kitty cat unitard. I've seen the mullet is fantastic. Like, what else do you do? That's it. Yes. What else do you do for fun? I see it.
You know, I'm a clown, probably not news to you. We have an extensive costume closet here in the Long household. So I like to dress up and get laughs out of my family and friends. I like catching people off guard. One of my favorite taglines whenever I meet folks or whenever I'm going up on stage and a meeting planner is asking me all the needs that I have, and I tell them every single time, I thrive in awkwardness. Like, I embrace whatever the universe throws at me, because it's going to be what it's going to be. And so one of the things that I do for fun that probably a lot of people don't know about me is I love to embrace improv. So something comes at me and I, insert a phrase that I have in my head and try to seamlessly work it into an interaction to see if anybody notices it. Or, something very, very awkward, just letting it sit for a second and seeing how uncomfortable people are, because I'm typically not. So those are fun things for me. I appreciate you asking. You're one of the first people that have ever asked me that question.
Well, it's hilarious too. It's funny you mentioned the word awkward. So my son is amazing. My wife is like, when you picture the super mom, she's the super mom. She homeschools our kids. I have a 12-year-old son and a 3-year-old daughter. And it's just like the idyllic scene, and she just does incredible work. And so my son has this amazing sense of confidence, but this heart. He's an old soul. And so we were playing around the backyard one time, and he's like listing off these superpowers that he believes that he has. And part of having superpowers, belief is essential. So I'm asking him one time, I'm like, how many superpowers do you have? And he goes right immediately, he's like, I'm 26. I have 26 superpowers. And he rattles them off. And there's things like invisibility and taking tight turns, which I guess is a superpower. And he shows me, in the yard, like, look at that. I'm like, well, that was a tight turn. Oh, that was really good. And I'm like, you know what my gift is, Luca? And he looks at me and I go, love. And he goes, no, Dad. Yours is awkwardness. And I go, he's probably right. So Paul, I'm not like, I may not make awkwardness look as cool as you, but I have a superpower that I can take everyday normal situations and make them awkward. That's a gift. It's a gift.
Well, it is a gift. And I want to explore that a little deeper with you. Before we do, so LinkedIn has been really an amazing platform for me through all of these challenges and quarantine life. So I just kind of devoted all the energy that I would typically have out, traveling or connecting like you do, to, just throwing good content, good content to me, but that hopefully resonates with others. And so as such, I've been putting what some would call unconventional content on LinkedIn. Me in a t-shirt, singing and dancing, some little message, whatever it may be. And I've met phenomenal people, you being one of them. But yesterday I had, I don't know if you're familiar with Startland News. It's a online publication out of Kansas City. And they feature entrepreneurs, and they reached out and they wanted to interview me and learn more about the Fundamism concept and what's the deal with these singing videos and background and all that stuff. I tell you all this because I was caught off guard for the first time in as long as I could remember. So we go on a journey of a number of different questions. And then the gentleman, Austin, he says, I'm going to ask you the last question. It's probably going to be the most difficult question I've asked you thus far. Are you ready? And I thought he was feeding me a line. Like, I thought he was going to say, where could people go to find whatever. He says, if you had to identify a song that would encapsulate your journey or yourself, what would it be? Now, Paul, I thrive in awkwardness like you. I know nearly every song there is to man. I love music so much, and I'm very eclectic. Like I know them all,
Right.
minus country. I'm not a big country fan, but
Reach.
in that, but in that moment, I was there was a million things going through my mind. And what is so amazing, and this is the universe, Paul, I know you believe in it. We talked about energy. We had an amazing text exchange yesterday. You said awkwardness, right? That's your superpower.
Yes.
But then, but that's your son. But you said love. The first answer and the only thing that just kept spinning around my brain, and maybe it was timing because I had just heard it recently, was "My Love Is Your Love" by Whitney Houston. Now, if you listen to the words, it's really about a relationship, a couple, but it really dives deep into if the world were to end tomorrow and World War III and Judgment Day and blah, blah, blah. But she goes on to say that my love is your love is my love. And so the thing that continued to go through my brain is what I hope people will garner from any interaction with me is that what I have, whatever it is, whether it's love or energy or enthusiasm or whatever it may be, it's yours. If you choose to accept it and you want to roll with me, then let's do it together. My love is your love. So we run parallel in awkwardness and love. And I just think that's crazy how the universe works.
So I'm gonna pirate this podcast for the next couple questions here. I'm hijacking it, and I'm gonna ask you the questions. You ready? Here's my question: at what point did your purpose and even tying in your professional life become one of giving and serving and compassion and community and philanthropy? Because you're a young guy, when did that strike you and you go, you know what, I'm all in, I'm moving all the chips on the table, this is going to be my thing, and darn the people that are telling me I need to fit into a certain mold, I'm following what's beaten out of my chest?
So Fundamism listeners, you are getting a little insight into why Paul is an amazing individual, not just to know, but to have as a friend and to potentially have as a guest. This is the first time that the interview is changing focal points. So, and I accept. Thank you for that.
Bring it on.
I think a lot of who we are and what we do is shaped on experiences, right? And that helps shape our perspective, both good and bad. But I think, at the root of us all, we're driven by whatever is in our heart. And so I've always been an individual that was very emotional. I'm emotionally high, emotionally low. I've always connected with people. I remember when we'd go out to the Royals games, John Stoner and I in our cat singlets, sometimes John would get frustrated with me because I would go off and I would start meeting people, and I would get back and he goes, "Dude, you're using this to network. Let's just have a good time and drink beer." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm not networking. Like, I'm genuine." People introduce themselves to me, and then I learn something about them, and all of a sudden I'm genuinely curious like you are, Paul. So I know a very specific example where I met this gentleman who was an avid supporter and speaker with the Wounded Warrior Project. And I mean, I got lost in conversation with this gentleman for over an hour. And that was what generated this discussion with John. So all that to say that, I've always been driven by heart. There's very specific examples in my life that probably magnified that and pushed me further in that direction, i.e. the moment that I met Noah Wilson, which you have a very keen interest in. And I think that, at the end of the day, life is very short, if you think about it in terms of how we live. And the terms in which you have, like adolescence and, well, first toddler and adolescence
Mm-hmm.
and all that stuff. You got to maximize it while you can. And I don't want to be the guy that looks back thinking I had more to give, but I didn't. And so reverting back to you now, one of the things that really made your initial introduction to me unique was not only did you say, I want you in my circle, I want to meet you, I want to talk to you, and then said some things that we have in common, not just individuals like John McGraw, but the wisdom and knowledge and concepts that really go along with these like-minded individuals that we share. And as we get into the conversation, you said, I want to find a way to help Noah and Noah's Bandage Project. And again, you never asked me for a damn thing. Like the whole call was about finding ways to connect personally and how you could prop up something that meant something to you. So now we flip the script. Why did you do that? Why does that matter so much to you? How are you driven so much by your heart and throwing goodness and kindness out to others?
Well, it's interesting. At the end of the day, it's you can make a mistake pursuing goodness and kindness and generosity, as I did. I started letting my ego get involved, and eventually, before I'd known it, kind of things happened one day at a time. I actually got into being so prideful about it. So it's interesting. I want to be real careful if anyone's listening. I'm not perfect, and I've got some things that I'm really thankful for that I'm working on. And I know we all too, Paul. I was joking around with my friend Brian I was talking to last night, and I was like, man, we've all made mistakes, and I'm pretty sure, like if there were like if we were coming to playoff time for like the great people in our community, I'm quite sure I'm not even being considered for the playoffs, and I'm pretty sure I'm not even in the major leagues. But I will tell you, I got really, really tired of myself. So I guess when I say myself, I'll separate that out. Myself. So we've all got a self. And I got tired of being the center of my own world. After a while, I found that I just couldn't. Kind of quick background on this answer. So I was fortunate enough to join a really great organization 21 years ago, right out of college, Northwestern Mutual, and they really helped me grow and develop, and that ended up, really attracting some success. And I figured as a, successful, pardon me if this isn't politically correct, but a successful Johnson County young white financial advisor, I was supposed to play a lot of golf and have 4-day weekends and basically showcase and convince myself that I was like, really, really successful.
You arrived.
And
Yeah.
I'd arrived. And what I came to find was I was miserable. I was just, trying harder and harder to prove to myself that I was successful and therefore I was happy. And I was just like, it was eating at me. And I'm like, there's something else out there. I'm missing it. I'm not doing it right. And so eventually I came to a point where I'm like, okay, so I can go and, go back and start working harder like I used to. And I could have more stuff. But it was around that time in my, I'm 42 now, and I was in my mid 30s, and I met John McGraw, and John has become just one of the most important people in my life. And John never said this, but like a lot of brilliant mentors, he helped guide me to my own understanding. And what I came to understand through John was really for my own reasons. I did not want more to enjoy. I wanted to enjoy more what I already had. And so at that point, I was able to basically authentically say, you know what, I'm not going to play this game anymore that I see going on around me. And again, this isn't to disparage anybody, because I can't claim to understand anybody else, but I realized for myself at that time, I didn't need a bigger house, nicer car, younger wife. Like I just needed to be good with me.
You need to be
And
present. Yeah.
yeah, and just be good, and just be. And so at that point I started thinking, well, what else could I do? Like, what could I do for others? What could I do? Because I got a little taste at that point of servanthood, and I was like, man, this is the greatest feeling in the world. Like, what I can do with, $10,000 for somebody else is way more satisfying and gratifying than a $10,000 thing for myself. And like, so And again, I feel very blessed that I was able to be at that point, which again can be at a different point for different people, but I determined that I was at that point for myself. So we started doing some cool things generosity wise, and then more even impactful was time involvement and just getting involved with giving and serving. And what it did was it quieted my rapturous desire for consumption and self. And so I then, so long answer here, but here was two things I determined as I tried to figure out, like, okay, what am I going to do with this time? I could go work for charities and not for profits, and maybe I need to leave financial services and I need to go like just do service work all the time. And then I thought, what am I really trying to do here? And what I found was there were two issues in the world that were really bothering me, and they happened to be very related. The first issue I found was that, I don't know if you've heard of the rule of three, but I learned this, like all great people, by playing the board game worst case scenario board game with myself. And the rule of three was you can survive for 3 minutes without oxygen. You can go 3 days without water. You can go 3 weeks without food. And you can go 3 hours without shelter in the harshest conditions. So again, these are all generalities, right? Although I choose not to test them myself. So anyway, what I found was in our own community, in this beautiful area we live in, all over and around us, there were people suffering and struggling and going through everything from malnourishment to homelessness to abuse and neglect, and women and children being marginalized. And there's all these issues going on, and pediatric cancer and things that in Johnson County in 2020, like, how is this going on? And it just like, this is not right. And then it occurred to me that at the same time, some of my most successful clients, some of the people who just had it all, air quotes, had it all.
Yes.
They were empty and they were lonely and they were feeling as dissatisfied as I was feeling dissatisfied when I thought I was entitled to feel great because I earned it and I worked my butt off for it. So surely I should feel complete, but I wasn't. And they were feeling the same way. And what I came to realize is that while these issues going on around us weren't our fault, they were our opportunity. And it was our opportunity, like you and I see now, Paul, to be able to lean in and to be able to use what we've been given, not for excess and but for the opportunity to be the bearer of the gift. So God had equipped us with something to offer. And when we lean in and start offering it, we realize, man, I no longer feel lonely or incomplete. I feel connected and I feel alive and I feel engaged. And those are John McGraw terms. So I'd just say that realizing that that the opportunity was right in front of me to find fulfillment, not through getting more, but through giving. And I say that, by the way, not to say, well, aren't I wonderful? But the reality is, if you get down to it, it was a selfish decision. It was what I chose for myself, and you're choosing for yourself. So it's not to be glorified. It's to say it was a personal decision.
For sure. That right there is an interesting concept that every now and again people will broach with me. Specifically, ego can get in the way of a lot of things. And what's interesting about your particular space, and I know that you are the managing director at Northwestern Mutual, and you've been in finance the whole time. Is that all accurate?
Yeah.
So, and that's always been a space, perception, our perception is reality, that's just been grimy to me, right? It's, and probably, the movies have glorified this concept in my brain and what it looks like of $1,000 shoes and suits and Lamborghini.
Boiler Room and Wolf of Wall Street didn't help. What are you talking about? I thought it was really accurate.
but ego plays a significant role, especially when you're dealing in money, right?
Right.
And part of when you were talking, as I was listening to you, you sparked a thought in my head. Diamond Dallas Page, former wrestler, went on the Joe Rogan podcast, and he was wearing a shirt, and I was looking for the quote on the shirt, but it was something to the extent of, and forgive me, I'm going to butcher it because I can't find it, was ego overcame skill, or my ego limited my skill, was essentially what. So basically, ego could get in the way of so many things. And, it's a fine line between confidence and being ego driven.
Right.
So what you just said that really resonated with me is there is a form of selfishness in what I choose and what you choose to do. It makes us feel phenomenal to give our hearts and to connect with individuals like Scott and Deb Wilson and champion pediatric cancer research. And there is something very self-serving that goes along with that makes us feel wonderful. And so sometimes people will push on me a little bit. Yeah, you're not doing it to benefit yourself. Well, of course I am, but there's worse things in this world to be doing for yourself than to give love to other people. So I think it's important to note that it is okay to be self-serving at times, especially knowing that some of these things that you choose to do can benefit other people as well. It could be mutually beneficial.
Yeah, so I'm going to hop on that, Paul. Rodney Dangerfield, the great American philosopher, in his American cinematic
I get
masterpiece,
no
Back to
respect.
School, no respect at all. Rodney said, "Look out for number one, or you might step in number two." And
Yeah.
and I think, what's interesting about that is, while we have to really keep the self in check, right? The self is part of what just demands to be satisfied. It loves the praise. It loves the recognition. It also loves feeling victimized. So I think you do a great job with the message. It's the self which we hate this part about ourself, but our self loves to be the victim, right?
Yes,
And
for
so
sure.
so keeping self in check, but at the same time, the difference, what I found is the soul needs to be nurtured, and the soul needs to be cared for, and the soul needs to be guarded and protected. In the world, this book I think I shared with you, that I'm sharing with everybody now, it's just changed my life. It's been so healing, is called Get Your Life Back by John Eldredge.
Mm.
And this book helped me understand what the soul was. And one of my friends has told me over the last couple of years, as I was going just further down and down and down and just grinding myself into a pulp, which I was telling myself the story was, I'm a martyr, I'm giving my life for others. And it was just, unchecked self was destroying me for what I was telling myself. The story was a very noble purpose, but the problem was I was becoming less and less effective because I wasn't ministering to number one. I wasn't taking care of my soul and myself. And that's one thing I love about your videos, is it's great modeling that, hey, Paul is up with music and positivity and giving, and he's working out. He's taking care of himself. And you're in a better spot by 9 a.m. every day than most people ever get in their life. And it's just, it's great modeling. So, yeah, anyway, I can finish the rest of that story, but I think that the point is soul needs to be nurtured and cared for, but we need to be very mindful of the self taking over.
So Paul, that whole conversation about, ego, this whole conversation about, selflessness and all that stuff and allowing ego to get in the way, it brings up a topic that really interests me a lot, specifically about you and a trait that I find to be one of the most valuable in any human being, which is vulnerability. So I posted a video the other day, and you've been kind talking about, the purpose of those and what purpose they serve. But the other day, I just wasn't feeling it. Like I didn't want to do it. I woke up, we've all had those days, and it became more of a task than something that was fun.
Yeah.
And so as I did the video, I actually posted in the comments or in the context of the video itself that I hope you guys enjoy it more than I enjoyed making it, because this was a struggle. And all of these folks commented about, oh, thank you for being vulnerable. And it's good to see, you bearing your soul and all that stuff. And that was something very minuscule in the grand scheme of things, because you, myself, so many in this world, we appear to be happy all the time. And for the most part, we are, but we struggle too. We have bad days. We've gone through challenges. And so it's amazing that we prop all of these individuals up based on what we see, when there's so much that we don't see that could impact our perspective of others. So as we kind of dive into you and your history and finance and personal and professional career, what are some of the most defining moments in your life that maybe challenged you to get to this place where you are today?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's interesting too. One thing I love about f.u.n. the f.u.n. F is the foundation, right? So it's a journey into understanding who you are, and really, and it's a journey, right? So it's like I was taught by my coach, my new coach, that it's a lot easier to grow when you don't see yourself as something broken that needs to be fixed, but as a work in progress. And so, this is a journey. And I think that you bringing fun into it makes it so much easier. You just think about, like, if you're trying to learn something new and it's all rigid and you're getting yelled at and you're being judged and evaluated on every mistake, versus just have fun with it, embrace the awkward with it. And like, for me, that's like golf. Like I started getting better at golf when I stopped caring about the score and like about the fact that I probably look stupid. And I started having fun. I relaxed, and all of a sudden my swing showed up. Like, oh, right. So so for me, one thing that happened early on in this career, like, I don't know how I ever got recruited to the company I'm at, because I was not of the caliber at 21 years old that they were really looking for. I looked around me and I'm like, man, did they even check my background check? Like, how did I even legally end up here? Right. Like, and then they must have been desperate for a recruit. And, but it was so hard. And the beautiful thing about how hard my work was is it demanded that I grow as a person. It demanded that I either step up and change at a fundamental level who I was, or I had to leave. And one of my real good mentors in my life, Philip said, well, Paul, here's the deal. You can leave, but you got to take you with you. And that just really stuck with me, that, when I'm feeling most defeated or feeling most doubtful, I have to ask myself, am I occupationally disturbed? Am I situationally disturbed? Or am I just really unhappy with what I'm seeing inside of me? And invariably what it's been is, and it's one of the most empowering things of taking personal responsibility, is I realize, you know what? I got to own this. This is a me issue. And that's been huge for me over my career, to have people that hold me to that standard. And so again, back to your point of, our friendship is like iron sharpens iron, and we got to surround ourselves with people that demand our best self to emerge.
Yes. I think you just identified the title of this podcast, which was "You Can Leave, but you got to take you with you." That
That's
is
good.
so profound. It's profound in that we as a society are so programmed to believe that it's not us. It's
Mhm.
our boss, it's the company, it's the organizational culture, it's our family, it's our spouse, it's whatever it may be. And some of those can be true, of course,
Mhm.
but if you don't, to your point, and gosh, I freaking love you doing your homework and understanding the fun concept of really being introspective and taking a look at your inner self and your foundation and how you got here, to own your role in whatever you're going through. You won't be able to adequately identify what the problem is, and then ultimately find the solution to said problem, if you don't understand everything that goes into it. And so, my goodness, you can leave, but you have to take you with you, is magnificent. And I will certainly take that with me today. It also goes to a point that we shared yesterday, that you actually created as the catalyst for the music video. Not intentionally, of course, but you shared something that John McGraw had shared with you. And it was the Stockdale principle, the
Stockdale Paradox.
Paradox. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And essentially, we're talking about vulnerability and these defining moments in our life. And I'll let you expand upon it, but it's first of all, it's so relevant to what we're talking about right now. But I would argue that it's relevant to what everybody goes through every single day when they experience challenge and they wonder, how the heck am I going to climb out of this rut, right? So can you expand a little bit upon that Stockdale Paradox and why you sent it to me?
Yeah, it's a profound concept. And again, John was so kind, and right timing was perfect to share that. So what struck me about the Stockdale Paradox, which Jim Collins in his masterful book, Good to Great, had an experience with Admiral Jim Stockdale, who apparently, I could have the dates wrong on this, but he was shot down in the Korean War, was imprisoned for 7 years, I believe, and tortured over 20 times. And the other POWs, he saw, he was asked, how did you survive it? And he said, why do you survive it and the other ones didn't? And he said, well, the other folks were the folks that didn't make it were the optimists. And he said, what I had was an unwavering faith that I was going to get out of there. And Jim Collins asked him, well, what's the difference? And he goes, the difference is the optimists always had, we're going to be out by Christmas, and then Christmas would come and go. And then, we'll be out by Easter, and Easter would come and go. We'll be out by Christmas again, and Christmas again would come and go. And he said, and they would die of a broken heart. And they'd set up these expectations in their mind. And he said, but what I had was an unwavering faith that I would get out, coupled with, and I thought this was the profound part, Paul, is coupled with facing the courage to confront the brutal facts that I don't know how long this is going to go on. I do believe on the one hand, this is going to become a defining moment of my life that I will look back in gratitude and see that I became, through the struggle, who I was meant to become. But I have to confront the brutal facts that, I don't know when this is going to end. And I think that what I love about that is, and what my coach talks about is, I talk about interviewing people. I interview people constantly. And, I've been accused of being an optimist. That must be what it feels like to be 10 years younger and be accused of being a millennial. It's a terrible feeling when you're being accused of being an optimist and you're like, I thought this was a good thing. And so I asked my coach, I'm like, can you help me become more skeptical to round me out? And he says, Paul, he goes, you don't solve bad with bad. The goal is not to be an optimist or to be skeptical. The goal is to be real.
Yes.
So that really, for me, the Stockdale Paradox really defined what realism is I get to choose to believe that this is going to work and have unwavering faith, but there's a lot of work that has to be done right now in light of the present circumstances, which is, I think, what you're doing. So back to you, Paul, is embracing the really tough, deep work of choosing to bring energy and purpose and belief into my day today, because today is our life. This is all we got. And so are we going to get up and work out and believe and attack and serve and love and be happy with who we see in the mirror because of who we brought to today? Or are we going to wake up and just hope things work out, which, guess what? It's going to look like exactly like it did yesterday and the day before and the day before. So if you weren't real excited about those, don't just think that being an optimist is going to make it better today. You got to do the work. And yes, you will win if you do the work.
That Stockdale Paradox, it spoke so much to me. And I, like you, have that phenomenon that happens to me regularly. It must be nice to be an optimist, or I guess I just don't see the world that way.
Mm-hmm.
I think oftentimes people see optimists and they believe that, and not everybody is the same, right? So there are optimists that don't weigh facts or potential real case scenario what ifs. And that's what I took from the Stockdale Paradox is not only did he say or did he insinuate that he didn't know when it was going to end, he had no control of when it was going to end, right? So I post this concept with credit to you and John McGraw, of course. And this gentleman posts, what a fantastic concept. He said, we can assign deadlines and due dates to projects and things that need managed and done, but there are things that we cannot control, i.e. pandemics and challenges that the world faces day in and day out. We can only control what's within our control. And if indeed we have that unwavering faith that not only will we get through this, but we'll use it or leverage it as a defining moment in our life for growth, then maybe, just maybe, that is the definition of an optimist. So kudos to you for, though, exploring how to be more of a skeptic. I don't want to meet that guy, man. I'm in love with the guy that's sitting in front of me now. So I appreciate
it. Oh, dude. No, you're so good. So I'm going to throw this back to you as I continue my quest to hijack Paul's Fundamism podcasts. But because what are you going to do, right? But I have to give shout out to my sponsors. I don't have sponsors, I'm kidding, but there are people in our community that I really am thankful. Kansas City is such a special community. So I want to give a couple shout outs to some people that have shown up in this time. So Matt Basinger has been a guy that if you follow Matt, I don't know the guys at J Rigger, but I see your shirt and I see what Paul's doing. So you got to introduce me to those guys because apparently they're game changers. I think Joel Goldberg is a game changer. I think Scott Havens is a guy that connects great people with great people, and so much of the synergy which comes out of those relationships. Scott Havens just blesses our community over and over again. But one of my heroes, so a book I told you about that changed my life was continues to change my life. I say change my life. It's not like went from bad to good, but it took it to another level that I didn't know could even exist.
From good to great.
Yeah, from good. There you go.
See that?
I saw that. Yeah, that's why you're Paul J. Long. So it's Thirst by Scott Harrison. So Scott created Charity Water, and Scott had a quote. I've met Scott. I've heard him talk. I've read his book, heard his podcast. He has this quote from an old rabbinic saying that is, "Don't fear the work that has no end." And so I want to throw it back to you with that quote, Paul. Don't fear the work that has no end. Because that's what you're doing every day. And think about too, with not knowing the time frame, is there an end game for the work that you're doing? I have 100-year vision for my organization, what I set it up, why I built it, and what I set it up to do. I will ask you that question. Is there an end game in your lifetime for your work through Fundamism?
Absolutely not. I mean, because first and foremost, going back to our selfless conversation and why we do what we do. Somebody recently asked me, how do you, regarding the vulnerability thing that we talked about, thank you for bearing your soul, blah, blah, blah. I thought about it for a little bit and I thought, how could I have love to give others if I didn't have enough to love myself? So my point in saying that to you is, will the work ever be done? I don't think that I could ever love myself. I don't think that we could ever love ourselves. I don't think that we could shower ourselves with enough appreciation and thankfulness for the things that we have. It's never ending because greatness happens all around you every single day. You're blessed with a wonderful interaction with your spouse. You're blessed with a baby, 7, 8, 9 years in between 3 and 12. I did quick math. I'm not a math.
You nailed it.
But you're blessed with an opportunity that you never thought that you deserved nor capable of at 21. All of these things happen to us and they're great if you're paying attention and you're present. So, so long as I am loving life and am gravitating towards the things that lift me up and my own personal fundamentals of a fun and optimistic lifestyle, then I'm going to be trying to get that out to others as much as possible. And whether they want to roll or not, that's completely on them. I'll tell you, I am committed to making it as comfortable for others as I possibly can. But the work will never end. Will there ever be, I guess I can answer the question with the question, will there ever be enough joy, fun, fulfillment in life? And the answer to me is unwavering, and it's hell no.
Great answer.
So my goodness, dude, we could talk philosophy, which is really above and beyond many other things about you that interest me most about you. And one of the things that I would hope, you have no expectations of this relationship. And the more I talk to you, I'm starting to have one. And I think it's relatively easy because it's something that I think lifts you up and you could potentially define as one of your fundamentals. But as you find these books and these quotes and these concepts, when I rolled over the other day and the first message or first thing that I saw on my phone, which is generally not a good practice, anybody listening, for the first thing
True.
Pick up your phone.
Yeah.
But when the first thing that I roll over and see is a text from you and I open it and it's a video and says, watch this, and it's 3 minutes, and it hits me like a brick to the chest. of not just wisdom, but something that I could potentially go from and then leverage as content creation for myself. It was just super exciting and the best way to start a day. So my ask, and I guess I say it's an expectation, but rather an ask of you, is when this stuff hits you just in your sweet spot, or you receive a text message or read a quote or whatever it may be, and you feel like I or the Fundamism listener or follower could potentially benefit from it, would you send it my way?
I will. I
Is
feel
there?
like we're doing vows here, but yes, I will.
So as we start to wrap up our conversation, because you're going to go about your day and change the lives and every interaction that you do, or at least have the intention to do so and make memorable connections. Is there anything that you'd like to say in closing that's really kind of helped shape your perspective, or a quote or a mantra or something outside of the books that you've shared with us thus far that has really helped kind of drive you as a guiding light in everything that you do?
Boy,
That's deep, especially after I
yeah.
propped you up. Now I'm giving you, this is interview one-on-one, right? Or one-on-one right now. What I'm doing is I'm giving you opportunities to think of this as I'm expanding upon this verbiage. Do you see what I'm doing?
You're buying me time. Is that right? Stretching this out. Yeah. Didn't you violate interview 101 by asking me a really tough question with no prompting? Like
Yeah,
that
for
kind of
sure.
sucks, No, I think the only thing I would just suggest is be audacious in sharing that thing in your heart that just lights you up. And I think you do a great job with that, Paul. But like, you know, going back to the f.u.n, as we continue our journey toward joy and fulfillment and satisfaction and purpose, is I think if we haven't really, if we're being honest with ourselves and we haven't really truly tested just giving and living a life of service and without asking anything in return, and that's a big thing too. If we're giving with any asking for something in return, that is actually not a gift. In fact, you don't even get an IRS deduction for what you receive from a charitable event, right? So you buy a table for $1,000, but your
Yes.
meal costs $30 and they give you a $20 goodie bag, then that 50 does not, you don't get a deduction because it wasn't a gift, it was an exchange. And so I would say until we've really tested authentically giving to others, asking nothing in return, we don't know how amazing it feels. And one thing, Paul, from interviewing so many people over time, I literally have not met a person that didn't say in whatever way they knew how to express it, I want to do something that helps others. I want to know that my life is significant and meaningful in other people's lives. And so, and you look at people like you, and I mentioned, Scott Havens and Matt Basinger, and I look at, Joe Goldberg and John McGraw and, my friend Leslie Griesel. I mean, there's these people that just live to give. And here's the thing too, is it doesn't need to be a burden. It can be fun. It doesn't, and don't fall into the trap I did where we now start to think of ourselves as a martyr. Like, no, like you got to care for yourself. The end game is not, I'm going to give I'm going to end myself in the name of somebody else. No. I'm going to care for and build myself up, because the great analogy I saw recently, like you just shared, is there's a poem actually about it's called Roman Fountain, and there's two basins, one bubbling over and the top pouring over into the basin below. And that's just as you fill yourself up with love and goodness, and then it just pours over into other people's lives, and you just continue to get filled up, and it pours over into other people's lives. That is the life that I would encourage. That I've yet to find one person say that they don't want it. I've yet to find one person that can't have it. But it is work, and it is a choice. And at some point, we have to keep the self and the ego in check and go, you know what? I'm going to do this life of service for me. I'm not going to play the game anymore of trying to fulfill other people's expectations. I'm going to do it my way now. And I just encourage people, lean in, test it. You've got all these people around that I just mentioned that are modeling it. It's incredible. I have not seen a negative ROI on it too. So you don't need to ask for anything back, because the reality is you're going to get more than you ever could have imagined anyway. So that'd
100%.
just be the message I would want to share.
Yeah, man, you are a modern day philosopher, my friend. I think that in closing, one of the reasons why I asked you that question, in terms of what guides you and things that ultimately have helped shape your perspective. I know that you are committed to a life filled with learning, and so you're constantly looking to improve yourself. And the best thing about all of that is, as you improve yourself and as you learn these things, the basin, right? You
Mm-hmm.
fill yourself up. You are an individual that then fills it so much so that it overflows with other people. And that's not just love, brother, that's knowledge as well. So
Mm-hmm.
if people want to learn more about Paul Montello, where do we go?
Oh man, I'd say go to books. Just start reading. That's all I've got now. So just keep reading and learning. I'd
No,
say
we want to
follow
connect
Paul.
with you. If we want to connect with you on LinkedIn or learn
Oh
more
yeah,
about
I'm on
Western, where do
LinkedIn.
we go?
Connect on LinkedIn, or you can email me at paul.montello@nm.com. N is
Beautiful.
in Nancy, M is in Mary, or whatever. I'm around.
You're a man, man. You are the man. I'm blessed to know you. I appreciate you reaching out. I'm looking forward to more great talks, and me growing my knowledge base and wisdom just through the power of osmosis and being connected to you. So, from the bottom of my heart, thank you very much. To the Fundamism listener, we greatly appreciate your support. Now more than ever, we have to gravitate towards the things that give us strength. So whatever that looks like for you, to go out, have some fun today, and ultimately create some fun in the lives of others. Until we see you again or hear us again, we'll catch you on the flip side. Deuces.